He makes his coffee just one mug. There's no second toothbrush, no shared calendar, no lingering perfume. Some say he's lonely, but what if he's finally free? He doesn't post heartbreak quotes, doesn't overshare his wins, doesn't need a spotlight to feel seen, because after enough disappointment, he stopped experiencing pain and started learning peace. If you've ever wondered what kind of man chooses to live alone, and why so many find more clarity after love ends, stay right here. The truth isn't what you think, and it might just change how you see yourself. He doesn't need who chooses. There was a time when he measured his worth by who stayed, by who texted back first, by how many people wanted him, by whether he had someone to introduce at the next family dinner. But that man, the one who needed, is gone. What remains is someone far more powerful. He's not lonely. He's selective. He's not detached. He's deliberate. Because over the years, he's realized something crucial. Need is noisy. Choice is quiet. When you need love, you compromise. When you choose to love, you clarify. He no longer dates to fill a void. He doesn't tolerate drama just to avoid silence. He doesn't mistake intensity for intimacy. And most of all, he's no longer addicted to the performance of being chosen. Because now, he chooses. He chooses who adds peace, not chaos. Who deepens his clarity, not confuses it. Who nourishes his inner world, not demands to be the center of it. So yes, he lives alone. Not because no one wanted him, but because he finally stopped handing out the privilege of his presence to people who hadn't earned it. He walks slower. He speaks less. He observes more. Because real men who know their worth no longer seek applause from a crowd. He is not waiting to be completed. He is already whole. And from that wholeness, he builds everything. 2. His silence isn't empty, it's sacred. To most people, silence is something you fill. Musique, noise, conversation, distraction. But for him, silence is something you honor. He doesn't come home to voices, footsteps, or questions. He comes home to space, and that space heals him. No unspoken tension in the kitchen. No exhausting emotional caretaking at night. No decoding someone's mood while trying to rest. Just stillness. Just his own rhythm. Just air that doesn't ask anything of him. And in that silence he reconnects with the man he used to be, with the voice that got drowned out in compromise, with the calm that can only emerge when you stop performing. Because here's the truth. Most people avoid. When you silence the world, you finally hear yourself. And yes, that can be confronting. He's faced old regrets in that silence, felt the sting of his avoidance, even cried for no reason, except that something inside finally had room to breathe. But he didn't run. He stayed, because he understands the difference between emptiness and peace is whether you fear your own company. He doesn't. He's made peace with the mirror. He no longer fills his silence with noise. He lets it fill him with clarity. And in that quiet, he is not less of a man. He is more of himself. 3. He has mastered emotional self-control. When you live alone, your emotions have no audience. No one's watching to comfort you or to criticize. And that's exactly when you meet the real you. He doesn't have a partner to storm out on, no one to guilt trip, no one to manipulate with silence. Just himself. And when there's no one else to blame, you either fall apart or you grow up. This man chose the second. He's felt the chaos of unresolved anger. He's seen what happens when men let pain turn into destruction, punching walls, sending messages they regret, sabotaging the very peace they crave. So he made a vow to be responsible for his storms, to stop handing others the remote to his emotional state. He no longer confuses passion with volatility. He knows that exploding isn't strength, it's surrendering to weakness. And collapsing? That's not honesty, it's avoidance with a sad face. So instead, he pauses. He breathes. He lets the wave rise and watches it pass. Not because he's numb, but because he's trained. This emotional self-regulation isn't robotic. It's masculine restraint rooted in respect for his nervous system. He understands now, if you always need someone else to make you feel okay, you'll never feel okay on your own. And that dependence, that emotional outsourcing, it poisons love, even before it begins. So he carries his emotional weight fully. He doesn't ask others to soothe wounds he hasn't cleaned himself. He walks into connection whole, not hoping to be rescued. And in doing so, he becomes the kind of man others feel safe around, because he's safe within himself. 4. His freedom is his wealth. Most people think freedom is just about doing whatever you want. But for him, freedom is about not needing permission from anyone. He eats what nourishes him, not to impress anyone, not to hit some trending diet goal, but because he listens to his body. He sleeps when he's tired, not when a schedule demands it. And he travels when his soul whispers, "Go." He doesn't ask, "Will she be okay with this?" He doesn't explain why he spent $400 on a weekend road trip. He doesn't pretend his time is disposable. Because his time, his energy, his money, they're sacred. He no longer negotiates with guilt over the things that bring him peace. No more hiding receipts. No more walking on eggshells because he bought something for himself. And it's not about being selfish. It's about being clear. Because real freedom isn't chaotic. It's structured, disciplined, intentional. And that's what people miss. They think freedom looks reckless. But in truth, it looks quiet, steady, unapologetics. He knows now. Being free isn't about being alone. It's about being aligned with his values, with his rhythm, with the kind of peace that doesn't come from control, but from release. He doesn't owe anyone a PowerPoint presentation explaining why solitude feels good. He just lives it. And that is wealth beyond dollars. 5. He has time to build his purpose. There's a moment quiet, almost imperceptible, when a man wakes up and realizes, "I've spent years reacting to life, not creating it." That moment changes everything. For the man who lives alone, there's no one pulling at his time. No passive-aggressive sighs when he chooses to read instead of watch television. No guilt when he dives deep into his work, his art, his thoughts for hours. His life is no longer about making time for what matters. Now, he owns his time. And that ownership gives birth to purpose. He writes without interruption, trains without distractions, builds without apologizing for being focused. And here's what most people don't see. Purpose needs space. It needs silence to hear the idea clearly. It needs solitude to suffer through the mess of creation. It needs discipline, the kind that flourishes when there's no one second-guessing your every move. He doesn't need someone to motivate him anymore. He wakes up, driven by something deeper, not attention, but legacy. He asks himself, what will remain when I'm gone? And that question shapes his days. His alone time isn't a void, it's a forge. And out of that forge comes something more solid than fleeting romance. It's a man who knows why he wakes up, not to prove himself, not to win someone's approval, but to live like a craftsman, shaping a life that feels his in every detail. That kind of focus? It's rare. And it's only possible when you stop trading your time for temporary validation. 6. His circle is smaller but deeper. He used to know a lot of people, used to go to every event, answer every message, say yes, just to avoid seeming rude. Now, his circle is quiet, intentional, real. There are no more friends who only show up when they need something. No more texting conversations that drain his soul. No more pretending to laugh at jokes that aren't funny. He's pruned his social garden. And what's left is quality. A handful of people who can sit in silence with him without it feeling awkward. Men who speak truth, even when it's hard. Friends who don't perform, they show up. Because here's what he's learned. Loneliness doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being surrounded by the wrong people. And connection? It doesn't require crowds. It requires presence. He's discovered the power of slow conversations over fast replies, of shared stillness over forced excitement, of deep understanding over shallow approval. The man who lives alone isn't antisocial. He's selective. He's no longer chasing acceptance, no longer afraid of being misunderstood by people who never took the time to see him clearly. And that selectiveness, it's not cold, it's sacred. Because when the wrong people leave your life, they make room for the right ones to arrive, and for you to finally be your whole self with no apology. 7. He understands true stoicism. He's not cold, he's calm. And there's a difference. Most people confuse stillness with apathy, but this man, he feels deeply. He just doesn't bleed out loud. Because after enough heartbreak, enough false accusations, enough moments where vulnerability became ammunition, he's learned to guard the gates of his emotional house. He doesn't overshare. He doesn't perform pain for sympathy. He doesn't weaponize emotion to manipulate outcomes. That's not stoicism, that's emotional integrity. He grieves in private. He celebrates inwardly with quiet gratitude. He no longer posts his every victory, every struggle, every thought, because he doesn't need the world's applause to validate his journey. Jay Shetty once said, "Maturity is when you stop proving things and start living them." That's this man, to the bone. He has emotion, plenty of it, but it's not out of control. It's not spilled into arguments. It's not dumped on women expecting them to fix what he hasn't faced. Instead, he feels. He writes. He breathes through it. He gives himself space to process, not project. And in that, he's found a kind of strength most men never discover. He no longer confuses reactivity with authenticity. He no longer believes silence is weakness. He no longer mistakes detachment for wisdom. He knows now. There is power in stillness. There is leadership in restraint. There is love in composure, the kind that makes others feel safe, not smothered. And when he speaks, he does it with presence. Not to be loud, but to be heard. He is the calm in the storm, not because life got easier, but because he stopped making his emotions everyone else's responsibility. So now you know the truth about men who live alone, without a girlfriend, without constant companionship, without the world's approval, isn't that they're bitter, or broken, or forgotten. It's that they've chosen something different. They've chosen clarity over confusion, peace over performance, depth over distraction. They are not waiting for someone to rescue them. They've already rescued themselves from their own people-pleasing, emotional dependency, and need to be needed. Yes, maybe one day they'll share this life with someone, but it won't be out of loneliness. It'll be out of overflow. They've built a life worth inviting someone into, not because it's empty, but because it's already full. So if you're that man, or you're becoming him, know this: you're not strange. You're not missing anything. You're ahead of your time. You've stopped chasing noise and started listening to the quiet truth that most people spend a lifetime avoiding. And in that quiet, you found something rare. You found yourself. That's not just a life, that's freedom.